Trump's approval rating with Hispanics specifically, we have some new numbers out. And it is absolutely dismal what we are seeing. Let's go over here to Newsweek, where it says Trump's second term approval ratings with Hispanics slips to record lows. President Trump's approval rating has taken a hit during his second term among Hispanics, slipping to tie its lowest point thus far, according to a new Economist YouGov poll. Historically, Trump has faced backlash and criticism regarding his tough immigration policies, but just last week, Trump's approval rating with Hispanics reached its highest level since he began his second term in the Oval Office in January. Trump has notably touted positive approval ratings in news conferences and campaign rallies throughout his tenure in office and on the stump. In Wednesday's Economist YouGov poll, Trump's approval rating with Hispanic U.S. citizens is 34% versus a 56% disapproval rating. Last week, Trump's approval rating in a poll was 45% approval among the demographic, with a 52% disapproval mark. This week's 34% approval ties a February 9 to 11 survey by Economist YouGov, marking the lowest of his second term. 34% approval among Hispanics, a demographic that overwhelmingly voted for him. Wow. Almost a 12-point drop in his Hispanic approval rating week over week. How is that possible? Is it that Hispanic people are paying attention to Trump's nonsense, egotistically driven tariff war that he is unnecessarily bringing onto the American people and the people of Canada and the people of Mexico and elsewhere? Is it that Hispanic people very much so understand the importance of trade with places like Mexico, who we import a lot of different goods from them? Is it that Hispanic people are one of the most disenfranchised groups of people in this country and rely on governmental services for a leg up more so than white people do, and that they rely on things like the Department of Education and free meal programs and public school being accessible and affordable? Could it be that? Could it be that people are paying attention to the chaos that's happening and going, oh crap, we might have messed up? Incredible for his approval rating to drop so quickly, week over week, tells me that people are not having it with this current Trump administration. And you could say it's too little too late. And sure, it would have been nice if people weren't having it a little bit more on back in November, right, when we had the election. But this is seemingly unprecedented for a president's approval rating to drop so quickly amongst a demographic that he had the majority of support from just a few months ago. And I think it kind of wraps into this larger sort of disapproval with Trump's handling of the economy that American voters have expressed, and has resulted in dramatic drops in the Dow Jones. And let's look at this article here real quick from The Independent that kind of talks about some of this. It says Americans aren't happy with Trump's handling of the economy or his tariffs. Nearly 2 months into his presidency, Americans aren't happy with Donald Trump's economic policies. 56% of Americans disapprove of Trump's handling of the economy, according to a new CNN poll, a figure worse than any recorded during his first term. Let me say that again. 56% of Americans disapprove of Trump's handling of the economy, a figure worse than any recorded during his first term. The economy is the number one issue for 42% of voters, the poll found. Meanwhile, 70% of Americans believe his tariffs will drive up the price of living, and more than half believe the president is too erratic with his trade policies, a Reuters poll showed. An Economist YouGov poll found that Trump's approval rating with Hispanic U.S. citizens is 34%. We were just talking about that. So what's happening here? People aren't feeling the wealth and abundance that Donald Trump campaigned on bringing to America. And if you needed any more of a reminder that we are firmly in the United States of amnesia, look no further than these numbers going back and forth so quickly on what this specifically Hispanics think of Trump. I mean, this wasn't any surprise to people on the left and to me and to, you know, I pounded this table here talking about exactly what I foresaw and feared of if Trump was to be reelected, and crashing the economy was one of those things that many of us foresaw. I mean, doesn't take a political genius to see what happened in COVID-19 days and see Trump's leadership and how inept and really how he just ultimately failed us. He failed every man, woman, and child in this country during the COVID days, and how badly America got hit with death from COVID, having much, much higher death per capita than anywhere else on the whole planet, despite having the best healthcare in the whole world. And it really, really, really just shows people forget. Elections come around every 2 to 4 years, whatever, and people might go and vote in these elections, but they go and vote and they might pay attention maybe a week, 2 weeks, maybe a month before, and the election happens, and then people go back to their lives, right? People go back to their lives. They don't necessarily keep tuned in with the day in, day out leadership of Washington. And I think what we're seeing here is the result of propaganda. Let's be frank here. Univision was bought out in 2020. It's either 2023 or 2024, before this last election, by this right-wing favoring media company, and that totally favors Trump and totally favors Trump's policies. And we know that Spanish language, Spanish-speaking content online is much, much less moderated than English content. And we already know that how much propaganda and misinformation is out there in English. So when you couple on that, it's much harder to combat and fight misinformation in Spanish, with the fact that Univision, which is the biggest Spanish TV company in America, is right-wing leaning, and you combine that with the manosphere podcast ring that is out there that attracts lots and lots of young Hispanic men and young men in general, because these podcasters speak to a certain powerlessness that is felt by certain young men in America. The fact that that exists, it seems like it's all combining together to specifically indoctrinate and propagandize Hispanics into believing that Trump is some sort of solution to their problems. And it worked for this last election, being that Trump won Hispanics. But now what we're seeing here is that just 34% of them support his administration a few weeks into his administration. It's going to be a long 4 years, guys. I hope that people are feeling buyer's remorse. I hope that people are paying attention to all the nonsense that Trump is bringing to Washington every single day. And I hope that we're able to have some sort of meaningful elections in 2026 where we're able to express our dissatisfaction with the current administration in a democratic and peaceful way.